Captain Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the Starcatcher, her weathered salvage ship drifting silently through the Outer Rim's debris field. The vast expanse of space before her was littered with the remnants of forgotten battles and abandoned vessels, prime hunting grounds for someone in her line of work. But today felt different. The ship's sensors had picked up an anomalous energy signature, unlike anything she'd encountered in 15 years of salvage operations. "Captain, you might want to see this," called Marcus Rodriguez, her sensor specialist. His dark eyes were fixed on the holographic display, fingers dancing across the controls as he refined the readings. "The signature, it's not matching any known configuration in our database." Sarah moved to his station, studying the ethereal patterns floating above the console. The Galactic Concordat, the alliance of dominant alien species that kept humanity confined to a handful of systems, maintained strict regulations on what technology humans could access. But this signature didn't match any of their known patterns either. "Location?" she asked, already calculating risks and possibilities. "Grid Sector 47 Alpha, buried deep in that debris cluster," Marcus replied, highlighting a dense collection of twisted metal and shattered hull fragments. "Whatever it is, it's big." Sarah nodded to herself. The Concordat's patrols rarely ventured this far into the debris fields, considering them worthless space junk. That oversight had kept independent salvagers like her crew in business, scraping together a living by recovering and repurposing abandoned technology. But if they'd missed something significant out here, "Assemble the team," she ordered. "Full containment gear, and tell Dr. Rivera to bring her Xenotech scanner." Within 30 minutes, Sarah led a small team across the void in their maneuvering suits. Dr. Elinga Rivera, their resident xenorchaeologist, moved with practiced ease despite the bulky scanning equipment attached to her suit. Behind them, James Chen, Sarah's brother, and the ship's engineer, carried their cutting tools and emergency beacon. As they approached the energy source, the true scale of their discovery became apparent. Buried within the debris field was a vessel of impossible proportions. Its dark hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, covered in intricate patterns that didn't match any known civilization's design philosophy. "This predates the Concordat," Elena breathed, her scanner's displays flooding with data. "By thousands of years, at least. The material composition. I've never seen anything like it." Sarah directed her suit's lights across the ancient vessel's surface, revealing a massive breach in its hull. "We go in through there. James, mark our entry point and lay a guide line. Marcus, continuous scans for any sign of active systems." The interior was a maze of corridors that defied conventional shipbuilding logic. Spaces seemed to fold into themselves, and gravity shifted subtly as they moved deeper into the vessel. Their lights revealed technology that looked more like art than machinery, yet hummed with dormant power. "The energy signature is strongest through here," Marcus reported, gesturing toward what appeared to be a sealed doorway. The surface was covered in swirling symbols that seemed to move in the corner of one's vision. James studied the door's edge with his cutting torch. "This isn't going to work, Sarah. The material's too dense for our equipment." As if in response to his words, the symbols on the door began to pulse with a soft blue light. Elena's scanner went wild, and before anyone could react, the door simply dissolved, revealing a chamber beyond. Inside, suspended in a field of shifting energy, floated a crystalline structure about the size of a human head. It pulsed with the same blue light as the door, and as they watched, patterns of light within it began to align themselves into recognizable forms. "It's some kind of data storage device," Elena whispered, her scanner struggling to process the readings. "But the energy output, it's orders of magnitude beyond anything the Concordat possesses." Sarah felt a familiar tension in her chest, the kind that came with decisions that could change everything. The Concordat maintained their power through technological superiority, keeping lesser species like humanity dependent and controlled. But this was something they didn't control, something they might not even know existed. "Pack it up," she ordered, her voice firm. "Everything you can scan, every piece we can safely move. And not a word about this to anyone outside the crew." She looked at each team member in turn, seeing the same understanding in their eyes. "Because if we're right about what we found, we might have just discovered humanity's key to freedom." As they worked to carefully extract and document their discovery, none of them noticed the subtle changes in the ancient ship's dormant systems. Deep within its core, protocols that had slept for millennia began to stir, recognizing something in these new visitors that their original creators had long ago predicted they would find potential. The abandoned mining facility on Europa 7 hadn't seen legitimate use in decades. Its existence had been deliberately scrubbed from Concordat records after a disaster that never actually happened. The perfect cover for what Sarah Chen and her crew were about to attempt. 3 months had passed since their discovery of the ancient vessel, and in that time, they'd worked tirelessly to prepare this facility as their hidden workshop. Dr. Elena Rivera stood before a holographic display showing the crystalline artifact they'd recovered, her eyes reflecting the shifting patterns of light it continuously emitted. "It's not just a data storage device," she announced to the assembled crew. "It's an interface, a key to understanding the entire technological framework of whoever built that ship." James Chen looked up from the modified sensor array he was calibrating. Translation: "It's teaching us," Elena replied, excitement clear in her voice. "Every time we connect it to a piece of technology, it analyzes our level of understanding and provides information calibrated to help us advance. It's like having the greatest engineers in galactic history as our mentors." Sarah studied the growing collection of equipment they'd gathered. The Starcatcher had made dozens of carefully planned salvage runs, recovering specific pieces of technology from various debris fields. Some were Concordat cast-offs, others from unknown civilizations. All of them, according to the crystal's guidance, were pieces of a larger puzzle. "Show them." Sarah nodded to Marcus, who activated the main display. A massive hologram filled the center of the facility, showing an intricate technical schematic. It was a ship design unlike anything the Concordat had ever fielded, a perfect fusion of the ancient vessel's principles with technology they could actually build and maintain. "Project Phoenix," Sarah announced, "a ship that will prove humanity deserves its place among the stars." "The Concordat will never let us build this," said Raj Patel, their newest recruit and former Concordat military engineer. "The moment they detect something like this under construction." "That's why we're not building it all at once," James interrupted, grinning. "We're building it in modules, each one disguised as something else. When we bring them together," he made an explosive gesture with his hands. The plan was audacious. Each crew member would lead a team at different locations throughout the outer colonies, constructing what would appear to be routine industrial equipment. Only when assembled would these components reveal their true nature, sections of the most advanced starship humanity had ever conceived. Months passed. The crystal's guidance proved invaluable, showing them how to overcome technological hurdles that would have been impossible otherwise. They learned to manipulate energy fields the Concordat thought couldn't exist, to create alloys with properties that defied conventional physics. But it wasn't without cost. 2 of their construction sites were discovered, forcing hasty evacuations and the destruction of weeks of work. A Concordat patrol ship took too much interest in one of their supply runs, leading to a tense chase through an asteroid field. Each setback taught them to be more careful, more creative. Sarah stood in her private quarters, examining a small piece of the ancient ship's hull they'd recovered. The surface still seemed to drink in light, its patterns shifting subtly under her gaze. A knock at her door interrupted her contemplation. "Enter," she called, and Elena stepped inside. "The crystal showed us something new," the xenorchaeologist said without preamble. I think it's been holding back, waiting until we were ready." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Ready for what?" "The ship we're building. It's not just advanced technology. The crystal is teaching us how to create something that exists partially in another dimension. That's why the Concordat science can't detect or replicate it. They don't even know this level of physics exists. The implications were staggering. Not just a new ship, but an entirely new way of understanding reality itself. Can we do it? Elena nodded slowly. With what we've learned, yes. But Sarah, once we activate it, there's no going back. The Concordat will know someone has technology they can't control. They'll tear the galaxy apart looking for us. Sarah turned back to the hull fragment in her hands. She thought of every human colony living under Concordat restrictions, of children growing up being told they weren't ready for the stars, of an entire species with clipped wings. Good, she said finally. Let them look. Because when they find us, humanity will be ready to show them exactly what we can do. In the depths of Europa 7, Project Phoenix continued to take shape. Module by module, piece by piece, a revolution was being assembled in secret. And in its heart, an ancient crystal pulsed with blue light, sharing the accumulated knowledge of long-dead masters with students they had waited millennia to find. The assembled crew stood in silent awe before their creation. After 18 months of secret construction, countless close calls, and 3 complete redesigns, Project Phoenix was complete. The ship hung in the massive hidden dock they'd carved into Europa 7's ice, its hull reflecting the work lights in ways that seemed to defy physics. Final systems check, Sarah ordered, her voice steady despite the tension evident in her stance. Around the command center, her crew moved with practiced precision. Power core stable, James reported from engineering. The crystal's integration is holding at optimal levels. Dimensional field generators online, Elena added, her fingers dancing across the Xenotech controls. Phase variance within predicted parameters. Marcus looked up from his sensor station. Local space is clear. Concordat patrols are following standard routes. Nearest ship is 6 hours out at maximum speed. Sarah took a deep breath. This was the moment of truth. Everything they'd built, everything they'd learned from the ancient crystal, was about to be put to the test. Begin launch sequence. The Phoenix's systems came alive, humming with energy that seemed to resonate at a frequency just beyond human hearing. Lights rippled along its surface in patterns that made the eyes want to slide away, a visual representation of the dimensional technology that made it unique. Raj, Sarah called to their former Concordat engineer, "Are you sure about the sensor masks?" He nodded without looking up from his station. To any conventional scan, will appear as a routine ice mining operation. The dimensional field should handle the rest. The massive doors above them began to part, revealing the star-filled void of space. Sarah settled into the captain's chair, feeling the ship's systems interfacing with her neural implants, another gift of knowledge from the crystal. "Take us up," she ordered. Nice and easy. The Phoenix rose from its icy berth with impossible grace for a ship its size. As they ascended through Europa 7's atmosphere, Sarah felt a subtle shift in the ship's energy field. Exactly as the crystal had predicted. They weren't just moving through space, they were moving slightly adjacent to it. All systems nominal, James reported, ready for primary drive engagement. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Let's see what she can do. Plot a course to the Kuiper Belt testing grounds. The Phoenix's drive activated, and reality stretched. Stars smeared across the viewport like paint on canvas, but there was no sensation of acceleration. According to every physical law the Concordat recognized, what they were doing was impossible. They were halfway to their destination when Marcus's console erupted in alerts. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL. Configuration unknown. They're not Concordat. Battle stations, Sarah ordered automatically. Shields up, weapons hot. Elena, what are we dealing with? The xenorchaeologist was already deep in the crystal's data streams. The design. It's similar to our discovery, but newer. Sarah, I think they're descendants of the civilization that built our ship. 3 vessels hung in space before them, their designs a striking blend of organic curves and impossible geometries. Their hulls bore the same light-drinking properties as the ancient wreck, but refined, evolved. A communication request pulsed through their systems, bypassing every security measure they'd installed. On the main viewport, a figure appeared, humanoid, but clearly alien. Its skin had a crystalline quality, and its eyes held depths that suggested centuries of wisdom. Children of Earth, the being spoke, its words translated perfectly in their minds. We have waited long for others to reach this threshold. The seed we left has flourished beyond our hopes. Elena gasped. The crystal. It was a test. A key, the being corrected, left for species with the potential to transcend their current limitations. The Concordat found one of our seeds centuries ago, but they chose to use its knowledge to dominate rather than grow. They understand the technology, but not its purpose. Sarah leaned forward in her chair. And what is its purpose? To find those who can see beyond the obvious, who can take disparate pieces and create something new, who can adapt and innovate. The being's expression shifted into something like a smile. In short, to find those like humanity. Why now? Raj asked. Why not contact us directly? Because true growth cannot be given, only earned. You have proven yourselves not just by building this ship, but by how you did it. Using salvaged parts, adapting technology never meant to work together, finding solutions we never imagined. The being gestured, and data began flowing through their systems. There is much we can teach each other. Sarah felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. This wasn't just about one ship or even humanity's freedom. This was first contact with a civilization that could reshape their understanding of the universe itself. The Concordat won't just let us walk away, she said carefully. No, the being agreed. Which is why you must be ready for what comes next. The knowledge we offer comes with responsibility and consequences. Are you prepared for both? Sarah looked at her crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that she felt in her heart. They had started this journey seeking freedom for humanity. Now they had found something far greater, the chance to help reshape the galaxy itself. We're ready, she answered, and in that moment, the true purpose of Project Phoenix became clear. They weren't just building a ship, they were building the future. News spread through the galaxy's hidden channels like wildfire. A human ship that defied Concordat physics, ancient beings returning from the depths of space. Hope after centuries of oppression. The Phoenix had become more than a ship. It had become a symbol. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Phoenix, watching as another refugee ship slipped into the protection of their growing fleet. This one carried scientists from the Nix Collective, a species whose natural aptitude for quantum mechanics had led the Concordat to restrict their research centuries ago. That makes 17 species now, Marcus reported, updating their roster. All of them bringing their own forbidden knowledge, their own innovations the Concordat tried to suppress. The past 3 months had transformed their mission. What started as a bid for human freedom had evolved into something far greater. A gathering of civilizations who had all faced similar restrictions, all found ways to innovate despite them, and all carried pieces of understanding that the Concordat had tried to bury. Elena rushed onto the bridge, her eyes bright with excitement. The Nix scientists, they've done it. They've managed to integrate their quantum theories with the crystal's dimensional technology. The efficiency improvements are beyond anything we imagined. But before Sarah could respond, Raj's console lit up with urgent alerts. Multiple Concordat battle groups entering nearby systems. This isn't a patrol, it's a hunting fleet. The Concordat had finally shown its hand. After months of dismissing rumors about the Phoenix as impossible fairy tales, they had decided to crush this rebellion before it could spread further. How many ships? Sarah asked, already moving to battle stations. 57 capital ships, over 200 support vessels. Raj's voice was grim. They're using a search pattern we've never seen before. Someone high up is taking this personally. Sarah activated the fleet-wide communication channel. This is Captain Chen. The Concordat hunting fleet has arrived. Implement Protocol Nebula immediately. Non-combat vessels to fallback positions. All others prepare for dimensional shift on my mark. The response was immediate. Their ragtag fleet of refugees and revolutionaries moved with practiced precision, reorganizing itself according to plans they'd drilled countless times. The Phoenix took point position, its hybrid systems humming with power. "They're not just here to capture us," James observed from engineering. "Look at their weapon configurations. They're set for maximum destruction. They mean to make an example of us." Sarah nodded grimly. The Concordat built their power on the belief that they alone could properly manage advanced technology. "We've proven that lie. They can't allow us to exist." A new voice joined their communication channel, one of the crystalline beings, who they'd learned called themselves the Precursors. "The Concordat approaches the position we predicted. Are your people prepared, Captain Chen?" "As ready as we'll ever be," Sarah replied. "Though I still think this is insane." "The best plans often are," the Precursor responded with what might have been amusement. "Humanity's greatest strength is not your technology or even your adaptability. It is your ability to look at something impossible and say, why not?" The Concordat fleet emerged from FTL in a display of coordinated precision, their weapons already charging. Their commander's transmission was predictably arrogant. "Surrender now, and some of you may be permitted to live as research subjects. Resist, and be destroyed." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "You know what humanity's other great strength is?" she asked the Precursor. "We're really good at taking someone else's plans and improving them." She opened a channel to all ships. "Execute Nebula Protocol, with modifications." What happened next would be debated in Concordat tactical academies for centuries to come. The refugee fleet didn't retreat. Instead, it split into precisely calculated formations. As the Concordat fleet opened fire, each ship activated its dimensional drive in a slightly different way, creating a cascade of reality distortions that transformed local space into a maze of overlapping dimensional pockets. The Concordat's mighty weapons found themselves firing into empty space or hitting their own ships as space itself seemed to fold and reflect around them. The Phoenix led a series of hit-and-run attacks that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, each strike precisely calculated by the combined knowledge of 17 species working in harmony. Multiple Concordat ships showing critical system failures, Marcus reported, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. "Their fleet coordination is breaking down. They can't adapt to fighting in this many dimensions at once." From her command chair, Sarah watched as the impossible unfolded. The mightiest fleet the Concordat had ever assembled was being systematically dismantled by a force less than a quarter its size, not through superior firepower, but through the combined innovation of races they had dismissed as primitive. The Concordat made one fundamental mistake, the Precursor observed. They sought to control knowledge, to own it. They'd never understood that true advancement comes from sharing it, from letting different perspectives combine to create something greater than the sum of its parts. As the battle reached its climax, Sarah sent a final message to the Concordat fleet. "Remember this day. Remember that you were defeated not by a single race, but by the very diversity you tried to suppress. The galaxy is changing. You can change with it, or you can be left behind." The remaining Concordat ships fled, leaving behind a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered pride. But Sarah knew this was only the beginning. The real revolution wasn't fought with ships and weapons. It would be fought with ideas, with innovation, with the unstoppable force of countless species finally free to reach their full potential. The Phoenix's crystal pulsed with brilliant blue light, as if in approval of what its children had achieved. 1 year after the Battle of the Dimensional Maze, as it came to be known, the Phoenix docked at Harmony Station, a massive construct that shouldn't have been possible. Built in the shadow of a quantum singularity, the station represented everything the revolution had fought for. Its very existence defied Concordat physics, its design combining technologies from 24 species into something entirely new. Sarah walked through its corridors, marveling at how much had changed. Scientists from formerly restricted races worked openly alongside human engineers. Precursor mentors shared ancient wisdom with eager students from across the galaxy. Innovation flourished in an atmosphere of unrestricted collaboration. Still hard to believe sometimes, isn't it? Elena fell into step beside her, carrying a datapad filled with research notes. The Nix quantum theorists and the Zalthi energy specialists just made another breakthrough. They're saying we might be able to establish stable dimensional corridors between major systems. The Concordat said different species working together would only lead to chaos, Sarah replied, watching a group of children, human, alien, and hybrid, playing with a holographic puzzle that taught advanced physics through game mechanics. They never imagined this. They entered the station's central chamber, where representatives from over 30 species gathered for the day's historic event. The Concordat's response to their defeat had been predictable. They had marshaled their remaining forces for one final, massive offensive to crush the rebellion. But the very act had triggered exactly what they feared most: change. James waited for them near the chamber center, where a familiar crystalline artifact pulsed with blue light. The last holdout worlds are confirming their decisions now, he reported. Even some of the Concordat's own member species are choosing to join the Federation. The Federation of Free Worlds, a name that still felt new on Sarah's tongue. Not an empire built on technological suppression, but an alliance founded on shared knowledge and mutual growth. The Phoenix's crystal, they had learned, was one of many such seeds scattered throughout the galaxy, each waiting for species ready to transcend their limitations. Captain Chen. The Precursor Elder's mental voice carried warmth as they approached. Are you prepared for the integration? Sarah nodded. Over the past year, they had discovered that the crystals could be linked, creating a network of shared knowledge that grew stronger with each new connection. Today, it would activate the largest such link ever attempted. All security measures are in place, Raj confirmed from his station. The remaining Concordat forces couldn't stop this even if they tried. The chamber hushed as Sarah stepped forward. Representatives from each member species held their own crystals, some recently discovered, others hidden away for generations. At a signal from the Precursor Elder, they began the activation sequence. The air itself seemed to hum as dozens of crystals pulsed in harmony. Streams of light connected them in ever more complex patterns, forming the three-dimensional web of pure knowledge. When the Phoenix's crystal, the one that had started it all, was added to the network, the effect was breathtaking. Information flowed freely between cultures that had been isolated for millennia. Theoretical barriers crumbled as different scientific traditions found unexpected common ground. Art, culture, and technology blended in ways that created entirely new forms of expression. This is what they feared, Elena whispered, watching the display. Not that we would destroy them, but that we would create something better. The Precursor Elder's form shimmered with approval. You have exceeded our expectations. We left the seeds hoping to find species who could carry forward our understanding of the universe. Instead, you have taken that knowledge and transformed it into something we never imagined possible. Sarah felt the truth of those words. The Phoenix had been built from salvaged parts and forbidden knowledge, but it had become something more. A symbol of what was possible when artificial barriers were torn down. The ship itself was now part of the station's museum, a reminder of how far they had come. There will be challenges ahead, the Elder continued. Some will resist change, cling to old hierarchies. The Concordat's remnants will not go quietly into history. Let them try to stop us, Sarah replied, watching the network of crystals pulse with possibility. We've learned that the strongest innovations come from adversity. Every challenge they present is just another opportunity to grow. As if in response to her words, the crystal network flared with new connections, new possibilities emerging from the combined knowledge of countless cultures. The future was uncertain, but it was free. Free for each species to reach its full potential. Free for collaboration to spark new discoveries. Free for the galaxy to evolve beyond the limitations of the past. The Phoenix had risen from salvaged dreams to change the course of history. But its greatest achievement wasn't the technology it carried or the battles it won. It was the simple truth it had proven, that the universe's greatest resources weren't its metals or energies, or even its ancient artifacts. They were the unlimited potential of minds free to imagine, to create, and to work together towards something greater than themselves. As the crystal network stabilized, bathing Harmony Station in its ethereal light, Sarah Chen smiled. The journey that had begun with a broken ship in a debris field had led to something far greater than freedom. It had led to a future where the only boundaries were the ones they chose to transcend together.